All right, welcome to Trends on Thursdays, where I tell you about the trends I discussed with my clients this week. This week I'll talk about URLs, banks, open source training, and threads. First up, Google hasn't been showing full URLs in a few months now. Since the full URL doesn't matter that much, this wasn't expected to have much of an impact on the way the web works. After all, as long as people see that they're going to, let's say, Forbes.com or TobiasWilhelm.net, does it really matter what page? Now, Google is testing search engine results with the URL removed entirely. If you think about it, the biggest problem with websites for the last couple of years has been that there's still a preference for .com and people pay a premium for them. Even the runner-up .net is highly contended, and after that, well, people don't care as much for the .lawyer and .marketing or for the .us and .co. As we rely more and more on search engines, however, the domain name matters less and less. Yes, for printing on my business cards, if you still use those, it still matters what my web address is, but for search engine results, not so much. Or does it? While finding information doesn't rely on domain names, if Google removes the URL entirely, there's still the authority factor. In other words, if I Google vaccines, I might be giving more credibility to harvard.edu than paranoidmom.blog. In the short term, it also means that your pages have to be properly tagged with your name, as until now we tend to make them more descriptive, thinking Google will tell them where they're going. Next up, banks are quite frankly in trouble. Only 9% of business owners say that their bank addresses all their business needs, and almost 7 out of 10 business owners say that they would readily switch banks if they can find a bank that offers all the products and services that they need. Some of the problems cited have been around for a long time. Access to capital and overdraft protection, for example, and they're not necessarily the bank's fault. There are, however, many problems that are simply caused by technology or lack thereof. If your bank doesn't offer a card that works with Apple Pay, for example, doesn't have an app, doesn't offer credit card processing, you might just be with the wrong bank. Banks should be a partner in your business and not just be in charge of having you sign paperwork and making a bunch of money off of you. The banking industry is changing rapidly, and I suspect once a true disruptor enters the marketplace, many banks will be toast, and that's probably a good thing. Next, getting the workforce up to speed with the changing requirements of the job market is difficult, to say the least. Sometimes, as an employer, it feels like you're training people just for them to go work elsewhere. Matter of fact, a few years ago, we had a client that had a training program so good, their competition would secretly send their workers to apply and basically pay them double to get trained and quit. Anyways, big players in some industries are kicking around open sourcing their training programs. The idea is that if we have some standard of what our employees can do, we can elevate the quality of the workforce as a whole. A 4-year degree used to be the ultimate entry to the American dream, and well, it's no longer all that clear. Specialized skills are almost outdated by the time they find their way into a full college curriculum, and continuing education is much more meaningful now than ever. If you went and got a degree in computer sciences 20 years ago, which part of that degree is still meaningful? We now use technologies, materials, and processes that weren't common even 10 years ago. It will take a combined effort of the private sector and colleges and universities, not just to educate, but to keep educated. One more, Instagram has released their own version of an image-first communication app called Threads. Think of it as Facebook Messenger meets Snapchat. And actually, Snapchat stock took an immediate hit when the app came out. If you have a lot of conversations on Instagram and you're tired of having to find the little DM icon in the top of the screen, this app might be for you. Threads lets you add just certain friends to the app, reiterating Facebook's commitment to private conversations and small groups of friends. Whether it works is another question entirely. It might just be another app where we can place ads in the near future, but In all seriousness, my friend Andrew and I have been chatting away on Threads, which is basically Instagram, and I personally like the convenience of the new app. And as you know, convenience wins out over almost everything else. And that's it for this week's Trends on Thursdays. Of course, I'll be back on Monday. Until then, I'm Tobias Wilhelm.